How's it going, guys? My name is Tyler Schweitzer, and today I will be reading the speech made by St. Sue about the backlash against Christianity. I'd like to start off the speech by stating that the argument lacks the proper structure. There was really no main claim made by the speaker, accompanied by secondary points. There was a main topic, which was the backlash against Christianity, along with two main points that were then fixed as secondary claims, which I believe would be attempted, would be interconnected between each other. These claims being why Christians are the most suppressed religion in the world, and that Christians are brought up to believe that being a part of the LGBTQ community is wrong. Some of this information is flawed because the Bible cannot be quoted as a factual source of information. The Bible has many ideals that humans don't follow nowadays because morality has shifted immensely throughout the course of history. The first claim made by the speaker was that Christians are the most oppressed religious group in the world. Some things stand out to me about this particular claim. First of all, I don't believe this claim is very controversial. Religious groups don't exactly go around claiming oppression, and out of those who are oppressed, most likely feel it's not a competition of oppression. One you're either oppressed or you're not. The speaker tries to use an example about how Christians are widely persecuted around the globe, but fails to include any numbers or data that then correlate to this statement. A statement is made, however, about how in North Korea there are only 300,000 Christians and an estimated population of 25.4 million. And my rebuttal to that is that North Korea is the strictest, most oppressive dictatorship in the world and doesn't allow any religion there whatsoever. So this statement is flawed. Christianity, however, is the largest religion in the world. According to worldoutlets.com, there are 2.2 billion followers of Christianity around the globe. By sheer numbers, it's an easy statement to make, saying that they're the most suppressed, with simple logic of the sample size, but it's flawed because of this immense population of Christian followers. Based on the previous information, it's easy to see why the claim that Christianity is the most suppressed religion is flawed in theory. The second claim made by the speaker is that Christians are brought up learning that being a part of the LGBTQ community is wrong. What stands out to me in this claim is that it doesn't exactly correlate to the previous claim about how the followers of the Christian religion are the most suppressed throughout the world. The speaker starts off using a personal example about how he was brought up to believe that being homosexual was a sin, but the argument fails to connect with the main claim, and then the speaker uses the personal anecdote to generalize the entire Christian population. In fact, the only thing that corresponds between the two claims is that they're both about religious topics. If anything, the 2 points end up contradicting one another. The speaker uses a quote from Leviticus, which in fact is part of the Old Testament of biblical law, which Christians don't even follow. Judaism does. In Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13, it states that if there is a man who lies with a male, as those who lie with a woman, both of them have committed a detestable act, they shall surely be put to death. This quote clearly shows that the Bible portrays a zero-tolerance policy for homosexuals, and they are to be persecuted for their actions. This point completely contradicts the earlier point made in the speech about how Christians are the most suppressed religion in the world, but are now oppressing a different group of people. And the Bible has many practices that are outdated and unrealistic in terms of how we look at them today. As a result of shifting morality into a new modern culture, ideas that were looked down upon in the past are no longer. Many biblical ideas contradict themselves as well. In John chapter 8, verses 1 through 7, a story arises where a group of people brought a woman to Jesus who had committed adultery, one of the highest sins, and wanted an excuse to stone her. Jesus then stated, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." This statement clearly shows that Jesus himself thinks of all sin on the same degree, not one being greater than another. And if all sin is of equal importance, the sin of homosexuality is not any worse than the sins made by the common Christian. Given the flawed concepts of oppression, as well as contradictory statements throughout the speech and the Bible, the speech fails to prove that Christians are the most oppressed religion in the world, and their hypocritical views on homosexuality can be seen as erroneous. Thank you.
I will vote for that.
All right, Tyler, you had a kind of tough situation here because the issue is a little ambiguous and it's hard to pin down. And I thought you did a very good job trying to contextualize what the issues are, give it a structure that's easier to for us to listen to and respond to and understand what's being said, and then you presented some pretty effective arguments about those particular points. The first point, that Christians being the most oppressed, you kind of put it in context when you point out that Christianity is the most widely practiced religion, so in essence it's likely to also be the most oppressed since there are more practitioners of that religion. That's probably inevitable. The advocate's main example is North Korea, and I think most people recognize that North Korea is an aberration. You do suggest that they are not allowed to practice any religion in North Korea. I think you could give a source citation on that. Or, for example, that they have a national religion, which is worship of the Kim family, basically, and so anything that deviates from that is going to be persecuted, and anybody, regardless of what their religious beliefs happen to be in North Korea, would be suffering those kinds of situations. I thought that your argument on this, also comes down to the question of if it is true, like you said, you don't think there's a lot of controversy on it, but what is the ramification if it's true? I think that's a reasonable question to be asking. On the LGBT argument, I think you have a legitimate reasoning point to make that this does not correlate to the first point, which is Christian oppression, and there's an interesting kind of inconsistency about the oppression by Christians, the oppression of Christians and the oppression by Christians of people who fit into this particular category. You mentioned the difference between the Old and the New Testament, and you've got an example that illustrates that with the passage from John. So I think that makes the point pretty effectively. Instead of jumping on the advocate's points and criticizing the interpretation or the information that the advocate used there, I thought that you just found information from the same sources that the advocate's using to kind of mitigate the argument, and I think that's a pretty effective way of going about making the point that you did. All right, thank you.